When a student wants to learn to fly an airplane, at first they can only go up when there are no clouds in the sky. Kind of like if you're watching this on YouTube, kind of like behind me. Beautiful day for a student pilot to go up, learn how to maneuver and do the basic maneuvers of a visual flight reference student. They can see the ground, they can navigate through that, and that gets them. Then they learn to take off and land and do a few other things, and that gets them their first rating. And you can fly around with that rating, and that's just fine. But if you want to be able to fly regardless of conditions, I would say weather, but weather is an impact. But if you want to fly in the clouds, you have to take a whole lot more hours of training, some of which is with a hood over, well, technically a hood over your head, so that you have to focus on the instruments. You learn to fly on instruments so that if you can't see the ground, you can still figure out where you are and get to where you need to go. That's called IFR, Instrument Flight Rating, and that gets you to be able to, as they say, fly in the clouds. Hi, this is Gary on manufacturing, another one of my long-running podcast episodes. And this podcast is brought to you with the support of Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8 by Inductive Automation, packed with features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8 supports enterprises of any size. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. And while you're there at inductiveautomation.com, check out the ICC, the Ignition Community Conference, coming up in September. I will be logging in because it will be virtual only again this year. Hopefully by the end of the year we'll start to see some in-person conferences. It'd be nice, for me anyway, to go meet people again. So anyway, flying into clouds. I was thinking about that reference for probably a few reasons, but one is I sat in last week on many sessions of what was called ROKLive, the Rockwell Automation's summer conference, which has always been Rockwell software, and this year also it was a software fest, if you will, and quite interesting. Learned a lot. You can go to themanufacturingconnection.com and check out the reports I made from that conference, along with several other conferences I've done in the last 2 weeks. It's been crazy leading up to 4th of July. I'm recording this on July 6th, just after the 4th of July weekend. So at any rate, Rockwell, under Blake Moret, has been doing some interesting strategic moves, a number of which, some are that if you look at the executive team, the only thing that looks familiar is it's mostly older white guys, but there is increasing mixture there. But underneath the surface, the other thing that's interesting is a couple of the senior management have been brought in from the outside, something that is definitely not in Rockwell's culture. Definitely they've always come in from the promoted from within. Everybody goes through the sales training class, and they go through and they move through different levels and are given increasing challenges until they make senior management. And in the rare cases where they brought somebody in from the outside, they lasted a couple of years, and they just, in my opinion, just got chewed up by the system. And I watched some really fascinating examples. I'm a corporate observer, so started a long time ago when I was I reported to a VP who reported to a president who reported to executive vice president of a Fortune 50 corporation. So I got to see almost close-hand corporate strategy. I'm fascinated. But the strategy at Rockwell is interesting that on the software side, former CEO told me it was an experiment, and well, it was. And they had made a couple of acquisitions who were doing some things. They had to have software for HMI, SCADA, and programming their controllers or PLCs. But aside from that, software wasn't a huge deal, but it wasn't in the industry. And then software started to get bigger and bigger, And Rockwell had a department, they had things, but developing inside, and they had a not invented here syndrome like many companies do. And they switched that, and all of a sudden, boom, they put $1 billion in investment into PTC, um, and basically a strategic partnership for ThingWorx and Kepware. Um, Kepware for OPC. Rockwell played around with OPC, and they always kind of shunned standards a little bit, but it was just they just had to have OPC to connect to for their customers to connect. I'm sure the customers said, "Hey, guys, here." But the ThingWorx part of it was very interesting. They had developed not only connectivity software that could connect to all kinds of stuff, what we might call Internet of Things, but they also had some really interesting visualization tools and even some analytics tools. I got a demo about a year and a half ago, and I was just floored by how good ThingWorx was. So Rockwell was able, I think, very quietly to like disband a group in software development and just use this, and worked out much better for them and got them in the Internet of Things and that whole genre of connectivity. So that was a step in the right direction. And now the next thing coming up is cloud, and that's my reference to the pilots. Um, Things happen where people talk about, especially in industrial, we talk about it and talk about it, and we read about it, and people speculate and all that, and then all of a sudden, there it is. It was kind of interesting, and at the Rockwell conference, there was somebody, one of the executives made a comment about cloud coming or that kind of thing. Oh, no, 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 cloud is here. And so how was Rockwell going to get into it? Hire a whole bunch of programmers and a development team and put all that effort into it? They could have, but that wouldn't have been all that smart necessarily. They acquired an enterprise asset management, or CMMS, company called Fiix, Fiix, and they're in the cloud. And then the big acquisition news just before ROKLive was Plex, a cloud-based software as a service MES provider. Rockwell had an MES, and it was probably, my estimation, probably getting long in the tooth. And things had to change, and the cloud had to come, and how are we going to do it? Well, let's just buy a SaaS cloud-based MES company. And so they did. And so now Plex is going to be integrated into the fold. And I think that's a wise move. I think that moved Rockwell into the cloud. Now, integration work is not easy, but they seem to be doing it better. They didn't buy PTC, they just partnered, probably wisely. And but the partnership seems to have gone very well. Always a few sales-oriented things in the beginning of that, like who's going to get the cut and all that kind of stuff. That all seems to have ironed out, and I think overall it seems to have gone quite well. So we'll see how these go. I expect that they will go reasonably well, because that's the way the management seems to be these days. The new senior VP of software and control, comes from the outside. He's familiar with software and that sort of thing. So the cloud. The cloud is here. Look for more software as a service. Salesforce.com kind of initiated the whole thing on a big scale, and Plex has that sort of a thing going with its cloud-based as a service. One of the conferences I was at a couple of weeks ago was Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, HPE, and HPE totally pivoted a couple of years ago to an as-a-service company. And at this year's keynote, the CEO, Anthony Neary, talked about Antonio. Geez, some days I'm a little off. Talked about they've had 97% retention in their moving from a traditional to an as-a-service and a cloud-based company, and that seems to go well. So once again, that's an IT company. They play a lot in manufacturing here and there. And so this is all very interesting. And if you're not in the cloud yet, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, I get news releases weekly from all of those, sometimes more often than I can handle. So there's ways to get in. They're doing some really interesting stuff. Look at what Amazon is doing. They can even sell you some Internet of Things sensing devices and so on to hook up to AWS. This whole thing is really getting interesting with all the software coming together. Maybe it is true that software will eat the world. Uh, Listening to a podcast this morning, actually, while I was out on doing my aerobic exercise around the ponds and so on where I now live, and listening to Benedict Evans. Benedict Evans was when I first heard of him, he was a mobile phone analyst from England who had come over to Silicon Valley, and then got into a VC company and did a tour of VC things, and now he's back in England and he's an independent analyst, kind of like me except much more successful. But he covers mostly. He seems to be covering e-commerce, retail, that sort of thing. But today he and his colleague on his another podcast, or what is it? Not just another podcast. Um, Very interesting. You can find it on your favorite podcatcher of choice. But Benedict Evans was talking about. In fact, the topic was digital transformation. They were talking about digital transformation. What does it really mean? Nobody really knows. Everybody's got their own definition. Digital transformation is the buzzword du jour, or du month, or du year in our industry too. And so what does all that take? And he was talking about, you could talk about, well, we went from mainframe to PC to cloud, and we could say that's a digital transformation, but that's not 100% true because IBM just shipped more capacity in mainframes than ever before. So obviously mainframes aren't really dead; they're still around, and PCs are everywhere, and the cloud is growing and everywhere. Those companies that are not in the cloud are laggards, as some analysts would love to classify them. But he was talking about tech doesn't the tech industry doesn't change industries. So it's not just the tech people out there, it's what the people in an industry do. Like in some e-commerce, like maybe fashion. Tech didn't change fashion, but people in the fashion industry use tech to change the way people buy and procure, fashion, clothing, whatever. I've been using tech to buy books and stuff from Amazon since 1998 or something like that. Maybe 97 was my first order. In fact, I buy a tremendous amount of stuff online, not necessarily as much from Amazon, but they're very good and they deliver promptly and so on. And like the shipment of wine, I'm expecting any time now, same deal. So tech changes things, and I got to thinking about our industry, and it's not that long ago. It's only 13 years that we moved from mobile phones, or car phones. I had a car phone bolted into my car with an antenna on the back windscreen, windshield, and that sort of stuff. And then we went to one we could carry in a pocket, and we felt kind of privileged. Hey, I'm a guy with a mobile. And like a year later, everybody had a mobile phone. I mean, everybody. You could go everywhere. You go to Walmart, whatever. People were chatting on the phone, whatever. And so we were thinking in our industry way back about 2009, 2010, 2011, are we going to let people bring their cell phones into factories? And the IT departments, of course, are worried because they like control, and you're not going to control mobile phone usage. But, in a very short period of time, that was a moot question. They were there. I mean, everybody had one. Everybody had a mobile phone, and the only thing you had to watch was restrictions in hazardous areas and so on. And to be honest, I haven't heard anything about that in years, so I don't know how that worked out. You can call me and tell me on your mobile. But anyway, pretty soon everybody had one. And so Benedict Evans was talking about an industry he covered, certain kinds of oil and gas industry, where, in these projects that he covered, certifications and so on were essential in certain workflows. And you send an email, or you certified for this, I got a project coming up, and so on. And pretty soon, the person could be out in a truck somewhere, get some text or something on the mobile phone, text back, here's my certification, blah, 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 quick click. And he said it just totally, the mobile phone just totally changed workflow. And I'm thinking, same with us. Maintenance technicians, easily, more easily than they wish, are reachable. But better than that, they can get better information quicker. You can get a PDF of something. You can get a picture, drawing, a link back to the machine or whatever. Just tons of information at the fingertips. Just changed workflow. So now I'm thinking, of other kinds of things like this. I did the LiveWorks conference. It was just a one-day thing, a half a day actually, but it was cool. But they're really PTC is pushing Vuforia, the AR company that they picked up, augmented reality. I've been writing about augmented reality since 1998, 99 maybe, but a long time, 20 years. And we keep seeing stuff. I have put on HoloLens. I've put on other glasses at various conferences I've gone to. I've seen this, I've seen that, and they're all cool. It's really good, but they're not there yet. But wait till it catches on the workflow. I think it's going to be like mobile phones. I think it's going to be like Ethernet. One year I was writing about, are we ever going to use Ethernet? And the next year I was writing application after application after application of people using Ethernet like ho-hum. You mean we haven't always done this? And we're going to be that way with augmented reality because it has so many use cases in manufacturing for operators and for maintenance people and for engineers going out into the field. So we're just, one of these days we're going to look around and realize, oh, gee, everybody's got access to a HoloLens or whatever the augmented reality platform it is, the glasses or however it instantiates, and they're just going to be there, and we're just going to use it, and it's going to modify our workflow, and it'll probably improve our workflow to a significant degree, and that's what we're looking for, is improved workflow, which improves productivity, which is what we're all about. As much as people might talk about automation replacing jobs, we had a problem. There's a declining birth rate all around the world, and declining birth rate, but we still need to keep making stuff and doing stuff, and we're going to have to do it with fewer people, and people are getting really picky about the jobs they'll take these days because you have such a big choice. So all these productivity hacks are going to be cool. So that may be the next one. AR interfaces with software is a great interface for software, and so we'll check it out. So I'm still optimistic about a lot of things happening, a lot of cool new companies popping up. Yeah, they get acquired, but they bring that expertise to their new company, and it all stands to enhance things and leave room for the next generation of innovation and enhancements. So, software, clouds, whatever. I'll leave you with this thought. I was recommended a book called The Way and the Power. It's a book about medieval time periods samurais in Japan, a little bit of the culture, a lot about martial arts and swordsmanship and so on. But anyway, the samurai masters began their life as a disciple of a master in a dojo. Otherwise, there were people who were students in a class. And the writer of this book, The Way and the Power, put it this way: a disciple in a dojo and a student in a school, they both do the same things, but the disciple does things differently. How about you? Can you do things differently? Hey, have a good day. This is Gary on Manufacturing. And remember, this podcast is brought to you with the support of Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8 by Inductive Automation. It's packed with features for the modern control system, like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8 supports enterprises of any size. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. Thank you. Have a good day.